Good day. It's January 22nd, 2024. The U.S. Congress passed a new stopgap spending bill that averted a government shutdown 2 days before January 19 deadline. Thursday last week, the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, both chambers, agreed to pass the bill that will fund the government until March 8 this year. I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Joe Boban. Welcome to today's edition.
The bill that has already been sent to President Joe Biden and signed keeps the government open for the short term until March 1st and a second deadline on March 8 this year. After weeks of wrangling among the Republicans in the House of Representatives, Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican from Louisiana, had difficulty convincing his own side of the House, but worked with Democrats to pass the short-term spending bill on the House floor. The vote in favor of the stopgap spending bill was 314 to 108. With only 107 of Republicans voting in favor of it. But with the help of 211 House Democrats, the bill passed overwhelmingly. 106 of the hardcore right-wing Republicans voted against it and seemingly preferred a government shutdown. In the U.S. Senate, they voted for the bill 77 to 18. It was the third stopgap spending bill since September last year, where Congress was supposed to pass an appropriations bill they can agree on but could not. Last week, the deal between Speaker Johnson and Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on how to deal with the spending in the new year gives a new hope of completing the process the new March deadlines. As it appears this time in the House and in the Senate, fewer Republicans were opposed and more of them starts to get weary of the prospect of a shutdown as it could hurt them during this election cycle and be blamed by their constituents in their home districts of the devastation to families that the government shutdown can cause.
The online magazine Politico reported that the Capitol Police on Thursday last week said that it investigated over 8,000 threat assessment cases in 2023. That's an increase by 500 from the 2022 level and a harbinger of a potential spike in 2024. U.S. Capitol Police Assistant Chief of Protective and Intelligence Operations, Ashim Benedict, in a press release, the statement, quote-unquote, with the political conventions, member campaigns, and many issues being debated on the Capitol Hill. This is going to be a very busy year for our agents. Our team is dedicated to putting all of our resources into protecting Congress while we continue to grow in order to keep up with our expanding mission. Case investigations examine, quote-unquote, concerning statements and threats sent to lawmakers regardless of their political party, whether through the mail, email, phone, or social media. According to the same report, there were 7,501 of these cases in 2022 and 8,008 in 2023. The Justice Department has also been very busy investigating and bringing criminal charges against serious threats of violence to members of Congress. We have not seen these kinds of high volume of threats prior to the defeat of Donald Trump in 2020, where violence are being spoken of by some of these unhinged right-wing politicians and political extremists who no longer care about the democratic transition of powers in this country. And many of these hate speeches are being snowballed in the social media platforms.
The U.S. State Department has finally released the report into its investigation on Uvalde school mass shooting. In a press conference by U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, the report sharply criticized the responses of the police and the leadership positions. The mass shooting at the Uvalde Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 fourth graders 2 teachers were killed by a lone gunman with a military-style assault rifle. The 575-page DOJ report details the chaotic police response and unnecessary delay in the Uvalde massacre. Garland said, had law enforcement followed generally accepted practices in an active shooter situation and gone after the shooter to stop him, lives would have been saved and people would have survived. We are going to take a commercial break. Please stick around.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Guatemala has a new president who was finally sworn in after a tense 9 hours of delay in the swearing-in ceremony. Bernardo Arevalo, who was sworn in as president after what political analysts in many countries as a shocking win. Others describe it as a long-fought battle for democracy in this Central American nation. He qualified in June for a runoff election against well-funded and usually corrupt politicians in Guatemala, but he prevailed as the winner in the runoff election. His opponent in the runoff election has not even conceded. The status quo government and officials in power did all they can to prevent him from being sworn in. There were arrests, prosecution of his followers, suspension of his political party, but in the end, democracy prevailed.
Pakistan launched a retaliatory airstrike against Iran. In a report from the Associated Press, late last week, Pakistan launched an airstrike against alleged militant hideouts inside Iran, killing at least 9 people as it retaliated for a similar attack days earlier by Iran and raising tensions with its neighbor as conflict in the region escalates. The unprecedented attacks by both Iran and Pakistan on either side of the border appeared to target the Baloch militants groups with similar separatist goals. The two countries accused each other of providing haven to the groups on either side of their respective territories. In a similar action, the United States has conducted airstrikes inside Yemen against Houthis installations for drone attacks on commercial ships. Houthi rebels in Yemen are believed to be funded by Iran, and the drones used to attack U.S. ships in the region are Iranian-made. The Republican lawmakers in the House, and joined by 3 Democrats, were angered at President Joe Biden's action of launching airstrikes in Yemen without congressional authorization. Although these kinds of actions happen in many other presidents of the United States.
In the Southeast Asian country of Myanmar, more military outposts are falling into the hands of the rebel alliance called the Brotherhood of Three. Late last week, the ruling military government of Myanmar has reached a ceasefire agreement with the alliance of several ethnic guerrilla groups They have been battling for weeks in the northeast region of the country. The ceasefire was brokered by China. Major General Zhao Mintun, the spokesman for the military junta, confirmed the temporary ceasefire agreement was reached in Kuning, China, a city close to the Myanmar border. We're going to take a commercial break. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Today we are going for a special segment on our show, which we hope can get you better informed of what's going on these days when news stories are censored by governments and some are purposely filtered by media organizations depending on which side of the news they favor or have loyalties to. It is hard for me to ignore an article published in the February issue of Vanity Fair magazine, which is already in the newsstands, relating to how the people of the world are not getting the truth in the news reaching them, depending on a place and the source of the news for which that particular region or place has access to. The article, titled "The Fog of War," written by a veteran journalist, Fred Richin, poses the big question: how can we trust the images we see from the Israeli-Hamas conflict? The article explains how children as victims of the violence in war are portrayed in the media and how the different side of the war or conflict depicts them. The defenses of the perpetrator of violence against them, who maliciously describe what was seen by thousands or millions of viewers as crisis actors. That the dead children are not real, the Vanity Fair articles also wrote. Today, while many people who post imagery on social media are credible and responsible, providing insider perspectives and expert insights, there are also legions of rogue online fabricators. Now, as reporter Vaibhav Vats reports from India for The Atlantic, a grim video of beheading by a Mexican drug cartel was shared as an attack on Israeli citizens. A 2014 video of the Islamic State destroying a mosque in Syria was labeled as Israel destroying a Palestinian mosque. Why? The reporter Vats explains, the disinformation machinery of the Hindu right has been operating in an amoral zone, treating the Israeli-Hamas war as a little more than an entertaining spectacle happening somewhere far away and as a windfall for its Islamophobic agenda. In many parts of the world, the moral duty of journalists to report the truth has been compromised, either by the dictates of the regime in control, sponsors of the program, advertisers, and pressure from the editorial board or media owners. But the worst kind are from social media and media outlets who peddle the alternative truth. This is my own commentary and not from the article. But the article in Vanity Fair magazine emphatically say that viewers had been left largely in the dark, their tribal loyalties reinforced.
Relative to our responsibility to make you better informed, we are going to share with you an update, an unbiased report of Gaza and Israel's state of the media. There from Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Watch this report.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. From coverage of the war by Palestinian journalists on the ground, we turn to coverage by the Israeli media. What do most Israelis see on TV? How has the Israeli media's coverage shaped opinions of war? This is a clip from I-24 News of Israeli military commander Lieutenant Colonel Dotan talking about an alleged Hamas tunnel in an exclusive video shown by the network last week.
The IDF has found tunnels and weapons inside a child's room inside the Gaza Strip. These visuals were obtained from the IDF, and I-24 News is now going to be allowed to play that. Let's take a look.
During our patrols in the area, we uncovered the entrance to a tunnel under this children's bedroom, actually under this desk, exactly where the children were supposed to study. We can see very clearly the tunnel which goes towards the tunnel gallery. We can also see here these RPG missiles, these munitions grouped in the same sector, including military tactical vests and grenades ready for use.
That was a clip from Israeli media outlet I-24 News. For more on Israeli media's coverage of the war, we go to Tel Aviv, where we're joined by Gideon Levy, an award-winning Israeli journalist and author, columnist for the newspaper Haaretz, a member of its editorial board. His most recent piece headlined, "If it isn't a genocide in Gaza, then what is it?" Gideon, welcome back to Democracy Now! Talk about what Israelis see on television, where most get their news. We just did this whole piece on the killing of Gazan journalists, Palestinian journalists. We've never seen anything like this anywhere in modern history, where you have between 80 and over 100 Palestinian journalists killed in just a matter of weeks. What do Israelis understand is happening?
The main question, Amy, is what they don't see or what they are not being shown. Because as you know, and as your viewers definitely know, Israeli media is quite a free media, commercial-owned, quite liberal, no pressure from the government or secret services or army or things like this. Anything it does voluntarily. And the Israeli media decided almost wall-to-wall, maybe except of my newspaper Haaretz, all the rest, it's not only TV, also newspapers. They decided that they are part of the Israeli propaganda machinery. They stopped being journalists. And this they do in two ways. The first one is the most serious one. They don't show Gaza. The Israeli average viewer doesn't see Gaza at all. He sees the soldiers, he sees the families of the hostages. He is being told day and night about the Israeli sacrifice. He is being told day and night how brave are the soldiers. You see it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and only one thing you don't see, the suffer of Gaza. And the media decided not to show it, not because anyone pushed the media not to do it. They do it because they know very clear that this is what their viewers don't want to see. And they want to please them. And by this, they are betraying our first mission, to tell the full story. You know, there are Israelis who wouldn't care less to see all those terrible images and say, Hamas is to be blamed, the Arabs are to be blamed, they deserve it, they are barbarian, everything is fine. But they have to see what is being done on our behalf. So that's the first level. The second level, which is less important but still must be mentioned, is that Israeli media speaks now only in one voice. There is no room for any critic about the war. There is no room for any question marks. I don't remember a war in which, after so many stages, still the entire media is just a pale echo of the propaganda machinery of the army.
Well, Gideon, your newspaper, Haaretz, is somewhat different from the rest of the press, but how widely read is it within Israel, and who reads Haaretz?
Haaretz is not a big newspaper in terms of quantity, but it is still quite a influential newspaper, both abroad, as you know, because it's being published both in English and in Hebrew, and also in Israel. Still parts of the elite are reading it. I don't want to say that every Israeli reads Haaretz, but every Israeli knows about Haaretz, and through the social media it has some kind of influence, but it is obviously very limited.
Can you talk about the levels in Gaza we're hearing about of starvation, that every Palestinian is hungry right now, the babies being pulled from the rubble? I mean, we're thousands of miles away from you. Tel Aviv is very close to Gaza. What do they see when it comes to casualties?
Nothing. They hear the figures, but figures are only figures. It's only statistics. It doesn't make you feel, it doesn't make you understand the scale of the tragedy, the scale of the crimes, I must say. You know, you watch all the international networks and you see Gaza. You see the children dying on the dirty floors of the hospitals, bleeding to death. You see the uprooted people, you see the destruction, you see the suffer of hundreds of thousands of people, and obviously the starvation. And in Israel, you see only the soldiers, only the families of the hostages, only the scenes where you don't see Palestinians at all. It seems as if they don't exist. Now, Amy, that's not new, because the Israeli media betrayed the coverage betrayed its mission by covering in the same way the occupations throughout so many years. It was always dehumanizing the Palestinians as much as possible. But this time we reach a level that I don't remember such a level, because you can really watch for hours Israeli TV and have no clue what's going on in Shifa Hospital or in other hospitals or in uprooted neighborhoods. And where are the people? How do they make their living? Do they get some food? Nothing of this. Nothing which might remind us that the Palestinians are human beings. This is almost a taboo. Don't mention them as human beings.
Gideon, Prime Minister Netanyahu keeps assuring the international community that Israel does not intend to permanently occupy Gaza. But what is he saying domestically to the Israeli people? He even has two Twitter handles, one that's an official one, and then another that is more geared toward sending out incendiary messages to the population.
Just this morning, he was quoted in a private talk, I think, that the war will continue at least until 2025. And nobody sees the end, nobody knows the end. There is no end game, there is no plan what to do the day after. And the Israelis start to believe now that this might last for many years, at least the occupation of Gaza, obviously without intention. Almost everything that Israel did in the last decades was without intention, but it always came out. It never intended to go for wars, and it always finds itself in war. It never intended to create an occupation of over 50 years, and it came out like this. No. The intention is one thing, and the results are another thing. Israel has no plan to leave Gaza in the coming months or years, which doesn't mean that Israel will stay there. But I don't see any alternative right now. What will they do?
It is your right to be informed, and informed correctly, of what's happening in the world. When in doubt, find out what other media outlets are saying. Are the news outlet or social media source you habitually view reliable, or are they a disinformation outlet?
Well, folks, our hearts and prayers goes to the thousands of innocent victims of the conflict of this world. Children, women, the old people. We are out of time for today's edition of The Pulse. Join us again next week. I'm Sam Buban. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Joe Buban. God bless your week.
Enjoy Film TV Network on KGNG 26.8 Las Vegas and www.filmtv.us. Search for and download Film TV Network in Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and YouTube. Download the WCE TV app from smartphones and search for Film TV.